Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Open Bible Church San Jose Online. Welcome to our Christmas Eve morning devotional. We are having a very busy day today on the church property. Right now, as I speak, we are having an in-person pancake breakfast. And so sorry you weren't able to join us this morning for that. But we are celebrating the birth of Christ as we would normally do tomorrow, which is Monday, but today is going to be a huge celebration. And then tonight we're going to be having our Christmas Eve candlelight service. And if you're joining us in the morning and would like to join us in the evening, we invite you to do so. We're just going to have a great time of celebration. This morning, if you want to just take a moment and check in, doing things just a little bit different. If you notice, we started with worship. And so we're going to give a few announcements and then head right into our devotional this morning. But I want to encourage you to check in with your cell phone. If you will just take your cell phone and text to the number 408-547-4911. Again, that number is 408-547-4911. And if you can text the word "here" in your first name, let us know you are connecting with us. If you've never checked in with us before, we want to welcome you. If you would text the word "connect" to that number, you can then be able to be in the loop with all the things that are going on here at the church and all the moments that we can share with you. There's a couple of projects that we are supporting financially that we would love to have you be a part of. And if you text the word "give" to that number, 408-547-4911, text the word "give." It'll take you to the giving portal on our church website. And if you're not already a part of that, you can get signed up and you can donate, whether it's a regular offering. We appreciate your support, your generosity of our church ministries. But we have two very special projects that we are trying to raise monies for. One is a missions project that's in Tijuana, Mexico. They are purchasing a flatbed delivery truck, and we are committed to raising a third of that, which is $4,000. Currently, we have half of that raised. We just need an additional $2,000 to raise. So if you want to give towards that, text the word "give" to that number, and then in the notes put "missions," and we'll make sure that that offering goes towards the need in Tijuana, Mexico. The other thing we are raising funds for affects you who watch us online, and that is you receiving this message pre-recorded, and so that is great. To a certain extent, because we're offering the message that I normally preach on Sunday morning for everyone, whether you're online or whether you're in person, same message. But our worship is also pre-recorded, and we only have a handful of songs that we cycle through each week. And so we are very appreciative of our worship team. This is a very huge endeavor for them to record those songs and make them available to us for our online worship. But but what we're doing is we're raising money for live streaming. In other words, once we get the equipment and the cameras set up and activated, you will be watching online. You'll be watching the very same service that people are coming and attending on a Sunday morning. You'll be hearing new and fresh worship songs. You'll be hearing the message and the things that I share directly with the body. It's a better, in my opinion, it's a better worship experience. And so we are raising funds for the cameras and the equipment. It's not cheap, but we do have an exciting offer to share with you. And that is the cost of the equipment is going to be about $18,000. I know that seems pretty overwhelming, but what we're doing is we have a generous benefactor that's going to match every dollar that comes in up to half of that, which is $9,000. So all we have to do is raise $9,000. So if you give $20, it'll be $40. If you give 100, it'll be 200. If you give 1,000, it'll be 2,000, because every dollar will be matched up to $9,000, which will be able to give us the total of $18,000 in our budget that we will need to get this ministry in place. So we appreciate your generosity. Any questions, please let us know. But we are very excited to be able to not only meet a need on the mission field, but to upgrade our worship experience. We can also use that live stream camera for live streaming funerals, live streaming weddings, live streaming special events, things that normally are passed over because we don't have the capability of making them available to our online viewers. So if you are strictly an online viewer, I think it's in your best interest to help support this. Please let us know. Either text that money to that gift to the church through the app, or you can mail that in to the church address. Let us know how you would like to support us. Maybe you don't have the funds now, but you would like to pledge towards that. Let us know that you would like to do that by texting pledge to that number 408-547-4911 and the amount that you would like to pledge, and that money will be matched as well as it comes in. So any questions, please let us know. We appreciate that. So this morning, I just taken a moment to reflect. Again, very busy weekend, very busy day, but I didn't not want to have something available for our online viewers since our services in the evening. And so what I want to do is I just want to share a quick devotional with you, something that I've been often thinking about, because a lot of our attention is drawn to certain characters, and we talk a little bit about the shepherds. We talk a little bit about Mary and Joseph. We talk about the wise men. We talk about the culture and all of that. But there's something about Mary herself that I think sometimes we don't take time to really think about, and that is found in Luke chapter 2. And it's kind of tucked into a bigger story, a bigger scenario with the shepherds and the angel and the revelation and all that stuff that's going on. And so Luke chapter 2, verse 15 through 19, Luke wrote, "When the angels had left them and gone into heaven," and them are the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off, and they found Mary and Joseph and the baby, who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to him. And then verse 19 says, "But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart." Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. And that verse has often just been in the background, or the back of my mind as I've just thought about the whole Christmas scenario, or the birth of Christ scenario and all of that. And I often wonder what this looked like for Mary. I picture her being a dad of 4 boys and being in the room as each one was born. Man, I tell you what, there's nothing like that moment when that child makes its entry into the world. And there's kind of a holding of your breath to make sure everything's okay, to make sure the baby's active and moving, and then crying, and then all the things that you want to see that exhibit life. And I can imagine Mary, as a baby is born and is laid into her arms and wrapped in cloths and, as they say, swaddling clothes, to keep baby being kept warm. Mary just, loving and holding that child, and your whole focus is right there at that moment. But then you have the peripheral things that are going on, and people are probably wondering, what's happening, words trickling out. I mean, there's crowd gathering. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just sounds and looks as if this would not be an ideal situation for a mom who just gave birth, to have all these eyes on her, and the baby, and you're just wanting to keep that baby safe and protected and warm. And then next thing you know, here comes this whole herd, pardon the pun, of shepherds coming to check things out because an angel had sent them. And the shepherds were just absolutely blown away. When the angel showed up, the shepherds were afraid. But when the angel left, they said, hey, we got to check this out to see if that's true. And then they came to they found where Jesus was, and I don't know how long they stayed. I don't know, if they brought any gift or if they even, came close enough to the baby, but they were dirty and smelly and not in the best of appearance. And here they were to see this baby. And Mary is watching all of this with wide-eyed wonder as I'm sure the shepherds were telling her, the angel sent us, the angel sent us, the angel sent us. And I think maybe she was thinking about the angel that came to her and made the proclamation that her whole life was going to change moving forward because God found favor with her, and she was going to be carrying the Christ child, the Messiah. And so all of this stuff, I'm sure, was just bombarding her and hitting her. And what was her response? She treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. So there's a couple of things that I think Mary did. And the first one that I think is something very important for us to do is she had deep reflection. The idea of pondering indicates a deep and thoughtful reflection on the events that go on around us, and in Mary's case, the extraordinary events that were going around her in the birth of Jesus. And the idea of ponder means that she carefully considered and contemplated the details of everything that had taken place. The thing about my granddaughter, 2.5 years old, that kind of was intriguing to me was the fact that even at such a young age, she was just aware of everything. Her eyes, her head, everything was taking everything in. And so even at that early age, I could see that there was this trying to understand what was going on around her. 2.5 years old now and still very inquisitive and very bright. But I look in terms of Mary in the same way as an adult, just taking things in and just knowing what in the back of her mind, what God had said to her, and now seeing everything starting to unfold. And that idea of pondering is a deep reflection on what God was doing. In Luke chapter 1, the very first encounter that Mary had with the angel, the response that she made, I think, was just reflective of the depth of her character. And she said to him, the angel, when he said, this is what's going to happen. In chapter 1, verse 38, she said, I am the Lord's servant. Mary answered, may your word to me be fulfilled. And then the angel left her. May your word to me be fulfilled. And when I think about her in that stable place where she's holding her son, I'm thinking that maybe she is going back to that moment where the angel said, this is what was going to happen. And her response to him, may your word to me be fulfilled. May your word to me be fulfilled. And so there's that deep reflection. I think it's important for us that we take time to reflect, not just surfacely, but deeply on our faith, on those around us, on the moment, those things that really are significant, that define who we are as Christ followers. The second thing that she did is she treasured the moments. And I think for me, that is a common practice when I think back on my Christmases, back when I was early childhood, my young adult years, my times where, that I missed because I was living on the West Coast and my parents were living in the Midwest. I wish we could have spent more time at Christmas time with my family. I reflect on missing my folks, my mom, my dad, missing my family during those times, because those were special times. Those were amazing times around the Christmas tree. There was so much energy and so much activity with 6 kids and 20 grandkids. And I'll tell you what, there was never a dull moment. And maybe a couple of great-grands thrown in there. And my mom and dad had such a rich, rich heritage of life. And I think back to those times, and I treasure those moments. I treasure those times. And so Mary treasured these experiences because they were precious and valuable to her. She held them in her heart. The miraculous nature of Jesus' birth, from the angelic announcements to the visit of the shepherds to the visit of the Magi, something Mary deeply valued and cherished. And I'm sure carried those memories and thoughts throughout the time that she was raising Jesus. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But every step of the way, as she reflected on Jesus' birth and his life as a man of God. So with that, our reflection and our treasuring the moments, it's coming to a place where how does all this connect spiritually? You know, I think our world sees everything in a one dimension, and it's a relationship where everything's just right here in front of us. And the meaning is, okay, we're building love and relationships and all of that. I'd probably be not doing a good job of explaining what I'm thinking, but it's deeper than that. There's a three-dimensional view as far as I'm concerned. It's the relational, it's the emotional connection that we have, and then it's the spiritual connection. Mary's pondering reflects a spiritual depth and understanding. She's just a young gal. I mean, she's not an older, seasoned woman who's now being told, hey, you're going to be with child, and has all this broad experience of raising kids and all of that. We're talking a young girl, possibly young teenage girl, that is now becoming the mother of the Messiah who will change the world for all eternity. And so she had to have a deep connection with God to trust him in the situation in which she is being asked to step up. So Luke chapter 2, verses 49 to 51, kind of fast forwards to when Jesus is 12. And Jesus is missing. He's in Jerusalem, and Mary and Joseph are getting ready to go home. They had this annual trek to Jerusalem, and Jesus is nowhere to be found. So they come back and they find him, and he's teaching in the synagogue. And they were kind of miffed that Jesus, didn't tell them where they were, where he was, and they had to find out after a 2 days journey that he wasn't even with them. And so he asked, so they were just kind of giving him a piece of their mind, and then Jesus said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. And he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them, but his mother treasured all these things in her heart. There we go again. Mary realized that there was a deeper connection here, and now she was seeing the fulfillment of prophecy that she had knew, probably studied and learned as this whole situation and embraced her, and she was folded into the narrative of. And here Jesus is now acting out the commandment or the prophecy of who he was to become. And so I think that it just all began to make sense to her about what Jesus was fulfilling and what he was doing. The fourth thing brought about how was Mary going to respond to all this? And her response contrasts with a more outward or verbal proclamation. Instead, she didn't say much, but she internalized it. And she internalized these experiences and responses, suggesting a personal and contemplative relationship with God. So, I mean, it was very personal. This wasn't some robotic action that she made. It was very well thought through, and because Mary had a connection of trust with God, she was able to walk this out for that. And so her heart became a place of reflection and meditation on the divine unfolding events in her life because she knew God. Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3 reminds us, Isaiah wrote, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast." Why? Because they trust in you. I truly believe that Mary's personal connection with God was based entirely on a very powerful connection she had of trust. And lastly, that trust led to her being submissive to God's will. For those of us that struggle with trying to hear from God, trying to understand God, sometimes our struggle isn't an understanding, but it's a submission. We don't really fully surrender our lives to God's will, to his plan, to him who is our Lord and Savior. Mary's pondering indicates such a submission to God and his will for her life. It was a willingness to embrace the mysteries of the divine that were beginning to play out and unfold in her life. Rather than demanding immediate understanding, Mary exhibited a humility. See how that works? Trust, humility, surrender, submission, that sought to grasp the depth and significance of God's work in and through her. Job chapter 22:21, the first part of that says, "Submit to God and be at peace with him." James 4:7, the very first part of that verse says, "Submit yourselves then to God." You know, as I close this morning, I just want to encourage us to think about how Mary factors into the whole understanding of what Christ was bringing to the people. You know, the proclamation that he shall be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And Mary in that recognized that as Jesus was growing and developing into the fulfillment of that prophetic messianic word, she herself had a very vital, important response or role in that, just like we do. We have to be surrendered to God's will. Jesus was surrendered to God's will in coming. Mary was surrendered to God's will in being the instrument or the vehicle through which the Messiah was brought into the world. And we are the instrument or the vehicle of the message of hope that comes because we have that relationship with Jesus in our lives. We become submissive and surrendered to God's will. And because of that, it's personal, it's spiritual, and it's our role and responsibility to reflect and to treasure, just like Mary did, all the things that God is doing in and around us. This morning, excuse me. God bless me. This morning, may we, like Mary, take time to treasure these precious moments, ponder them in our hearts. We need to take time to pause and slow down. And as you do so, I challenge you, encourage you to keep your eyes open and your heart ready for God to show up in ways that you least expect it. God bless you, and Merry Christmas.